So we're going to uh, discuss a number of different things tonight. My name's David Newren. I've been going to, I'm a few minutes from now, I'll have a friend of mine on, who's in a difficult situation physically. His health is, he's a young man and his health has taken a really bad turn for the worse. He's got, neuropathy in his feet. He's got a tumor in his brain, and his heart stopped a few days ago. And so he's a good friend of a friend of mine, and I would like to share with him in every way that I can, every possible way for him to heal, to be healed from everything that's afflicting him, that's seemingly he's, could be at death's door even. And so the question is why? Is there a good reason for it? And on the initial review, it's always yes. There's always a good reason for it. However, it only may be a good reason as you consider it from a very limited and very unaware point of view. One that's nowhere near to what you could be doing, who you could be, what sort of version of yourself, if you get to keep the same sort of self that you're being right now. But again, why would you want to if your life is a life of suffering? If the truth of you was beyond suffering, and so then allowed you or enabled you or forced you even, but love never forces. When you feel something less than unconditional love, I got to turn the air conditioning off. Bear with me a moment. This is not a well-run studio yet. First time back back on camera. It seems like 2 years since I posted something, and so I have to say that I feel so much like this is the right thing for me to be doing right now, for me to open into a free-flowing state of consciousness, or whatever that means for me, and open to, let's say, my wholeness. Instead of the idea of who and what I am, instead of a definition of who and what I am, shouldn't I instead look inside myself until I know from my own experience who and what I am? If you take your definitions of who and what you are from a reality outside your own body and a reality outside your own mind, then you're making a big mistake, because they don't know who they are. And so if you let someone who doesn't know or live or understand or even seek the truth of themselves, then then why would you ever allow yourself to be programmed, to be defined, to choose for you who your identity is, choose who you are, what you are, how you are? So say no to all that and let that be in your past. Let your own consciousness in this moment be what brings your presence in cleanly and clearly, because it is. You, in the now, bringing in whatever it is that you could say is your wholeness, which means bring here exactly what you are without all the human filters. Take all the human filters off. And without any of those words, without any of those agreements, without any of those programmings. Let all those programmings go and choose to open to your wholeness. And then allow what then happens to you happen to you. Because that's what will let you know whether or not, pardon me, I think it's just about time to call my friend Joey. Okay. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Bear with me for a moment. I'd be curious if he answers or not.
Please leave your message for...
Okay, that'll give us a few moments to further set up whatever it is going to come next. And for us to predict that at all, is coming from a consciousness that's not high enough to be inspired enough to say something worth listening to, frankly, because there's nearly an infinite number of people that you can pay attention to now, right? Why pay attention to me? I got a sense of humor, but I'm not exactly a comedian. I've got a lifetime of, from one point of view, mistakes that have brought me to right here and right now. And yet at the same time, oh boy, have I had some extraordinary experiences, so extraordinary that, in the midst of them, I'm wondering if anybody else has ever had something so profound occur to them, And then, as I inevitably, seemingly move back to my normal experience of myself, I accept all of the normal shackles and shutters and dimmers of, what I know myself as. Instead of that knowing, I'm allowing myself to be defined by others and their expectations of me. So if your life is not wonderful, if it's less than delightful, if you yourself are not a movement of grace, regardless of your awkwardness, whatever it is that you are is what you are. This isn't just for the smart or the beautiful or the strong or the lucky, but this isn't a competition. This is a question of what it is to awaken you know, but so awakening, you know, that's what was on the screen in the beginning. Awakening with David Newren. It seems a little pretentious. But in the beginning, the point is that in my normal state in life, my experience of myself is not awakened. You know, it's clever, you know, sharp, relatively kind. I think most people accept me as that. I experience myself largely as a honest person who a lot of times does the right things, most of the time, but then sometimes does things seemingly so wrong that how could I be both? How could I be a great man at the same time have experiences that are painful to me and painful to others? You know, ones that, you know, alter another person's wishes for themselves negatively. You know, is that how we want to compete on that level where there's always a winner and the rest are losers, or the other is the loser? You think that's how the divine works? You know, that it's just one? All the people that believe that are lost in polarity. We got a ring on that one. Hello, Joey.
Hello, sir.
Are we here and good?
Yep, I'm just setting up my oxygen just in case I
Oh, you can hold your breath. By the time you pass out, we'll figure out how you can breathe through your skin. Now, Joey, I'm already recording, so yeah, I'm already recording, so everything you say is
All right.
on the tape.
Okay.
Doubtful that anyone will ever listen to it, and you know, we're satisfied that this is beneficial for me and beneficial for Joey, regardless if we ever watch or listen to this again, and regardless of whether whether we're ever truly willing to awaken, you know, is really the question. You know, what others think about us for approaching the unapproachable, you know, for considering the unthinkable, for believing in the miraculous. Well, there went Joey.
Good.
Okay. So, if you'd like to experience, you know, the realm of the miraculous, then you know, I think there's some initial discussions that need to be said for orientation's sake. One, and that is, and again, this is just in case somebody else ever listens to this besides you and I, so they don't know what's going on. I'll say that my friend Joe just recently got out of the hospital. He has something comparable to neuropathy of his feet. He has something comparable to a god-awful tumor in his brain, and his heart stopped, and he was in a coma. And now he's out, and he's going, wow, you know, not too long ago I was healthy and happy and in my 20s, and now what do I do? Why is this happening to me? Why would this happen to me? I'm a good guy. I'm a good man. I'm kind and I'm generous to others. And I genuinely celebrate others. So why isn't that the bad people get punished like this? Why me? I've done well. Even though I've been rebellious, I just rebelled against boxes. I rebelled against definitions. I rebelled against beliefs because I wanted to believe my own experience first and not somebody else's that I don't know about and that I don't understand. And that's not a lot to ask of any organization that purports to be somehow in control of whether or not we go to heaven or not. A whole hierarchy of people in positions of power that, from virtually anybody's direct observation, are so flawed and so dull in their mind, in their senses, in their communications, that if I were God, I'd be kind of embarrassed to hang out with them, because if that's their best impression of the embodiment of a cosmic consciousness, you can't say you're good at it when you're not, and ask people to believe it. So let's stop believing that somebody else has the truth and it's not us. Okay? You can't be the one who has to learn but can't. You have to be the one that knows and knows how to know. You can't be everybody. Many people in life will celebrate your pains and your failures. And the first rule of that is anybody that's in that category, don't hang out with them. Don't give them your time. Don't give them your attention. Don't even give them your thoughts. Just naturally flow like water around a rock going on the stream to your destination, completely oblivious to the rocks that you go around that's in your path. Your path isn't a straight one. Your path is a flow. So open to your flow and you won't be damned. In other words, dams, stop things, make things build up, make things different than the way that they were, and something that doesn't breathe, literally stops the earth from breathing, by having a shower and then allowing it to run off and dry off. No, it's like, as great as dams are, metaphorically, that's what you're doing to yourself. You're stopping the flow. You're trying to hold on to something as being real that's a fabrication. And while fabrications can be real, they're not the truth of the infinite potential and the infinite degree of manifestation that you can choose to be. The question is when you get yourself in a pickle here and you've lost your natural way of knowing, and you've lost that sense of yourself as an eternal being, one that's been around a long, long time, if it could even be defined by time, and one that's been nearly everywhere that a being can be. And so if that's the truth of you, and yet you're here and now the way that you are, then, and the way that you are in this particular situation, sorry it took me so long to get back to that, but Joey is looking for some information and hoping that in evaluating that information, the outcome is it's okay for him to be healed, and quick and easily. So I'm going to ask a bunch of questions, and they'll sound kind of rhetorical, but I'm asking Joey's consciousness and unconsciousness, and to everything that Joey's connected to that limits him in any way, that defines him against his own nature, against what's really true. because they don't know, and yet they perceive from a low level of consciousness and say, that's what this guy is, and don't let him tell you otherwise. You know, phew. You know, what a curse it is to put that on anyone. Because anyone that would say that knows only the coarsest reality. He certainly doesn't know kindness, and certainly doesn't know grace. Certainly doesn't know how to move in such a way that his movement is not just allowed or tolerated. It's admired. You know, how do you have to move to be admired in life? In your life, as a defining experience of other people, of you, what would have to occur for not just the people who kind of are tuned into you naturally, but where, regardless of somebody's nature, their current state of mood, is there a you that you could open up to, let's call that your wholeness, your fullness, the entirety of yourself? What if we just did an experiment and said, okay, Joey, I know you'd like to believe that your experience of yourself physically in the last year, let's say, defines who you are. You know, it's the state and condition of your body, and your body has nothing to do with you except it's how you're experiencing reality and how you're expressing yourself in this reality physically as a singular point of view. And so what would in someone like you cause so much imbalance and disease and pain, you know, in your body? You know what? So let's start from a way that the answer itself could heal you. If you open to experiencing that response in an open enough, in a complete enough way.
Mm-hmm.
So, how far would you have to open into embracing your wholeness? How much of your wholeness would you have to open into and embrace for your consciousness to shift enough that you are no longer restrained by any vows, promises, agreements, you know, thoughts, ideas, beliefs, you know, judgments, you know, anything that would trap a being, you know? Is there a level of consciousness that's true for you, that's available to you by your own choice? Is it possible for you to choose that, open into that, receive that, allow the receipt of it to literally burn off all the lies that hold together the false you? Now, I'm not saying that and I'm particularly saying that the ego is okay. The ego is fine. There's nothing that you need to do to the ego except for allowing the ego to be the one that transcends, because your consciousness is what created and animated and experiences itself as the ego. So it's you as the ego, your consciousness as you are right now. Let's just say that's your ego. And so instead of rejecting your ego, instead of resisting it, being mad at it, and wishing how you could transcend it, move beyond it, the answer to that's pretty easy. You open to your wholeness. And you just say, okay, what is my wholeness? What could that possibly be? What could that possibly mean? Can I think back on everything I've learned and come up with a concept that satisfies me so I can hang that on the shelf and say, well, there's something else that didn't work? Or could you experience it yourself in how your body feels and what your body's aware of? What would happen if your consciousness and your body both opened up to experience a truth so beautiful and liberating that it sets the ego free by burning off all of the limiting thoughts and ideas and beliefs, the points of view that didn't include every other point of view. You know, when you have a body, you get to have one point of view as the senses of the body. But you don't have to limit your experience and your knowing and your understanding to just your bodily senses. You can allow your eternal nature, which is your wholeness. You can open up from the experience of self that you're having that's due to the limitations of the thoughts and words of yourself and others. You can literally save yourself simply by choosing to let everything else go, everything outside of you and your experience of yourself, and open up until you experience feeling yourself outside your body from all directions, and in such a profound way that that body itself is somehow a flow. And people talk about being in the flow and being in the zone, and it's a lot like that. It's you without your thoughts running your life. It's you experiencing life like a child, where I can't wait till tomorrow, because you know what I'm going to do tomorrow? Exactly what I want to. How about that? How could you not be excited about that when every new day, as you open further and further and further into your wholeness until your own wholeness is the truth to set you free. You know, I propose that each one of us has a truth that if we open to experience it fully in the body, that truth would set the body free. All of the limitations of consciousness and awareness, you know, you are reborn as not as in the water, but of the water. You are of the water. You are that which flows and moves and transmutes and transforms moment by moment. That's your truth. So coming back to the subject at hand, sorry, Joey, for looking at things, in such an abstract way. But
I don't mind.
okay, but I'm opening into more and more of my flow, so that I'm actually, as close as I can get to experiencing my own wholeness when I talk to you about this, and I ask myself the question, okay, what is needed to be said, or should be said, or if said would result in an opening in Joey where he would have either a miraculous healing or complete comfort and satisfaction in knowing that he's not going to be healed, and that there's a reason so good for that he's completely at home and comfortable with it, and it doesn't torment him anymore that he's experiencing what he's experiencing, because he knows from a divine point of view that what he's experiencing is his cross to bear, and in his bearing of his cross divinely. How inspiring can that be? Well, it's been inspiring enough that, 2,000 years later, big, huge, what, 1 billion, 2 billion? Well, there's 1 billion Catholics, so probably 2-3 billion Christians in the world. And what can you say about that? That was one inspiring story, right? Now, obviously, in parts of that story, it was shared really harshly and enforced on other people, which is the opposite of divine anything, The divine's the flow, not the definition. The divine is the truth, not the story of the truth. It's the experience, not the word. So what would the experience of your wholeness be? And how would your experience of your wholeness be that which healed your nerves, healed your heart, healed your brain? So what would it take? Let's just take a feel on that. What does it feel like? What would it feel like if the right thing for the universe and the right thing for you was a 100% cure as fast as you could open to it? What if the universe, what if the totality of the universe judged you in every way possible and came up with the decision that your sentence for who and what you are here is that it's time for you to be healed. Healed in your nerves, healed in your heart, healed in literally your brain. And more than that, your consciousness is healed. Because when you open into your wholeness, you're opening into the universal within a singular point of view, a singular personage, and that's what makes a holy man. That's what makes a mystic. Now, that's what makes a demigod, and that's what makes the brothers of demigods and the sisters of demigods. And if your God was ever a person, and they ever spoke about the experience of what it was like to be whole, to be complete, to be the universal within the singular, one life, one identity that just says, I am. I am that I am. So your wholeness is a similar thing. I am what I am. Okay. So I can't tell you what it is because it can't be defined. It's an experience that is transformative. And I don't know if there's anybody to teach you how to do it. All I can really tell you is that there is such a thing as the wholeness of you, And it's different from who you normally are, and different from who you are in this moment. Because the wholeness of you is blissful, it's joyful, it's transcendent, benevolent, unconditionally loving, and yet can have a temper tantrum, pardon me, that you can't believe. But if that happens, it's over in a second or a minute. You know, it's, as soon as it's been expressed, it's gone, and it's back to equilibrium. It's back to being present. And, you know, this is what it's like to have a body. Sometimes the body reacts, and sometimes the right thing to do is to let the body react and express. Emotions are nice. You know, that's part of the human experience, and to stifle them, I wouldn't say is a flow. I said to stifle your emotion is actually stopping them. And when you put a stop to something, that's a dam. And when you put a damn it to something, that's a damnation. And you've damned yourself in nearly every way it's possible to be done. But since you are the brother that Christ said that you were, and we both grew up in that tradition, and just because the messenger was flawed, you know, that oriented you and told you the story and said, you know, check it out for yourself, though, you know, that's the cool thing about Mormons, you know. They say, here's the story, you don't have to just believe it, you know, meditate, pray, contemplate, look at it until God shows you something that you're able to open up to and experience as something even better than an epiphany. It's because it's something that changes you a little, and it makes you realize that as part of your normal reality, there's divine beings around. You can, as you open up your faith into knowing, and faith moves into knowing by experiencing the transcendent itself. And so, Joey, is your experience of yourself, if you experienced a transcendent being, one with, you know, at least a cosmic consciousness and a come from, a point of view that encompasses all points of view in the awareness of what is, and yet acts unconditionally loving and unconditionally supporting of all life and all consciousness, and does it in such a way that if you're focused on them and experience their words, it's nearly impossible to twist them into something that's wrong or evil. You know, because words can be defined in so many different ways, you know, in their tonality and the emotion and the intention. And, you know, you can make a good word bad and a bad word good, and neither one of them understood the same way. You know, no matter how many times you did it, it's always done with an infinite array of potentials. And, you know, like a slot machine with the dials rolling, they take a minute and set into place, and then that's the way it is until you change it. And so in this game of life, you've heard that term, you know, I'm not commenting on whether that's correct or not, but in this game of life, you know, you picked up a icon and entered the game and rolled your dice or spin the dial or picked a card, and whatever that was, you know, you came here to somebody I immensely enjoy every time I see him. but he doesn't like me near as much as I like him, and so, he lets me visit, once a year or something, one time out of 10, but even still, as much as I like to complain about that, you came here through a close connection that, in my interaction with him, set up the circumstances where your parents made. So I'm met, and so I'm going to take the singular credit for ensuring that they got together so that you could be born. And I'm only taking that credit because in this story that I'm making up about that, you asked me to do that before you were born, before I was born. When we looked at our lives here, we said, what kind of experience do we want to have this time? And I know I don't quite believe this time storyline of reincarnation. I'm not saying I believe the common theories and what people say about them. But before we were born, you and I had a conversation. I said, Joey, what you gonna do this time? He said, well, I was kind of thinking some of this. What you gonna do? And I said, well, I was kind of thinking something like this because, I did this one thing last time, and I'm wondering what it felt like for the other person. I think I'm going to have an opposite life this time, and I'm going to experience my entire life as the way that I'm treating other people each moment as I go through life. I'm going to have that affect my identity to such a degree that everything I do bad to somebody else results in me going less and less and less conscious until I'm chronically in a mode of fighting or running, where my emotions move around hate and disgust. So that's how bad it can get for somebody here. And I experienced enough of that in my own heart, in my own mind, for a long enough period in my life for me to say, I don't want to be this anymore. It sucks to be a piece of shit. And I opened up enough, and it was real enough to me to know that I wanted to balance out the scales in my life, that I would like to affect more people for good than for bad. And in taking the toll of my life, at one point, I thought I had done so much worse for people, created such a bad experience to them that I thought I shouldn't live anymore. And that surely I would be damned when I died. But, what I didn't know, that the scriptures, I'll say, used to say, is that your damnation is in question in the future. You don't know, but it's certain right now. You're fucking damned right now. If you don't want to be damned, then right now is where you undamn yourself, where you open to the flow, which is your wholeness. So if you open to the flow, if you open to grace, if you open to, it's your nature, Joey. It's your own nature. Without those things that are holding you back from fully experiencing it in such a way that every cell, molecule, and atom that comprise your body is aware of your wholeness and configures itself accordingly. So I think I'm going to give a few moments of silence right now. Don't try and figure out how to do it. Just don't stop it. When I say open, open. And when I say to your wholeness, don't try and figure out what that is. Just choose to be open, and then choose to open more, and open more, and open more. And in each new moment, choose to open from where you are into more than that. And then at some point, the flow begins. And your body's not struggling anymore. It's not in a situation where it's traumatized anymore, because there's a flow. And that flow isn't stopped by the tensions that the memories that created the identifications, where you kept your injuries, you kept all the blows that you ever took. You kept them in the present because you carried them along with you. So what would you have to let go of for you to allow yourself to be healed? What thoughts would you have to say, okay, I'm not holding on to those anymore because they hold me back? You know who they all are, and they know who they all are, so say, thank you very much, goodbye. I'm defragging my hard drive. I don't know if you know what that is. I don't know if people do it anymore, but 15, 20 years ago it was a thing. Haven't done it since, so. Since computers don't need defragging anymore, let's do our last defragging so we don't have to do it anymore. So let's consider this moment and place and time that we were talking of before we were born. And I asked you what you were doing, and you asked me what I was doing. And I said, okay, all of these things are going to happen, and then we're going to get together and do something really magnificent. But because of the way that we have to get together, it can't be magnificent until a certain point in time comes where we're old enough and responsible enough and free enough and able enough to ask the question and open to the answer and receive the answer as a causative force in releasing us from all definitions that actually became true of you, you owned them. So in what ways did you define yourself that created an experience where others could disapprove of you or could wish for themselves to be the opposite of you so you could be enemies? So what sense of self would you take responsibility for, where you've said enough is enough, I'm taking a new course in life, and that's going to change everything because my previous choices were the course in life that got me here. And so I'll take a look at that question of how far do I have to open for my presence in the moment to be the answer to the question of how much shit do I have to make up for in order to not hold myself back and for others not try to hold me back from me living a life that was as transformed as George Foreman was, from a wannabe killer to the most lovable teddy bear there ever was. That's close enough to be true that I can say it and be sincere. So what actually transforms a man? There's so There's so few examples that I can think of, that the average person can think of. You know, the average person doesn't know who George Foreman is anymore. But I can tell you from being around then that the transformation is miraculous. I'm not saying that he's embodied the entirety of his truth or potential. Maybe he has. And but what I am saying is that he opened enough to transform his life so completely that nobody from his younger days would know him as the person they used to know. So there is a possibility for a beingness in you that's real and authentic to transform what it is that gave you a view where you literally frightened professional fighters into thinking that you were going to kill them. So how do you move from that persona to one that loves seemingly everyone and everything he sees? That actually is miraculous, even if it took years for him to move into that. You know, it's not the speed, it's the flow. You know, if you're in the flow, it's okay. It's okay to have a journey. You know, you can, if you want to, if you're a quick one, you can evaporate up into a cloud and come straight back down as a raindrop and have that journey be the time it would take you to shower. So, if that's the fastest way you can do it, you could do it another way. You could be in the ocean, evaporate, go into a cloud, come down and snow somewhere, and be in a glacier or ice sheet for 500,000 years. If ice has ever lasted that long, but how long it ever has, you could be that too. So there's a lot of range of potential and possibilities between how quickly something could be done and how slow. Seemingly so slow that it's impossible for you and anyone that would be listening to this to believe that a transformational shift could ever happen. Not let alone you're on the journey, and for sure it's going to happen. And it is for sure going to happen no matter what you do. You can't resist it anymore. You don't want to resist it anymore. And you're going to continue resisting it, but pretty soon you're going to stop. I don't know when. You don't know when, but sooner or later you're going to stop. That's my bet. And my next bet is what will happen when you stop resisting the stories of your upbringing and defining how God is and how he works and stuff that were so difficult for you to believe. Instead of hearing the story, instead of watching the movie, I'd suggest the following to you, something that we could do right now. And if you were open to actually experiencing it, I would suggest you do it just so that we can have the experience right now. So it's not real complicated. If you believe there's ever a Jesus, and if you believe that Jesus is awake, and even when you don't, man, I have a friend that's a true yogi, and I was a little irritated at him because he was dismissive of Christianity, and I didn't take offense because I don't consider myself a member of a religion. I don't identify as that. I identify as Christ as my friend, you know? And so, as my friend, as my brother, you know, if I think about him and I say, hey, Jesus, oh, it'd be nice to feel your presence right now, he said. What you asking for permission for? You're already in my arms, and I also feel your arms around me. Pay attention. We are in an embrace. We're in a hug. We're hugging it out right now. And because I'm a little bit more awakened than you are right now, I'm hugging everybody else too, in just the same way. And it's just as good as if I was only hugging one person. So, open to your Jesus hug, Joey. He's already hugging you. You're already hugging him, so you don't have to decide whether to do it or not. All you have to decide is whether or not you're going to notice that you're already doing it and always have been. How about that? There's nothing you can do about it because you're already doing it. The only thing you can do is pretend to yourself that you're not. And so that's how you open. That's how a truth can set you free. By being one that when you look at it like that and say, wait, the proposition here, the conundrum for me now is not how to open, how to progress, how to awaken, how to enlighten, how to anything. What you're saying is that the truth is none of that's necessary, none of that's real, none of that's true. What's true is you're already hugging Jesus, and Jesus is already hugging you. And somehow you shut your brain down and your awareness and took an identity that couldn't experience that. And so now all I'm saying is, let yourself experience what's already real and true on the level of transcendent truth. What sort of transcendent truth is going on that you haven't been aware of, that you could, if you chose, open to and experience? Whatever that is, open to it and experience it. It's why we're talking. It's why we're spending time with each other right now, because we both want to experience something beautiful and magnificent. And if at the same time that beauty and that magnificence could move as a healing flow through Joey, so that inner disharmonies could move into harmony. And by inner, I'm saying his body, but I'm also saying his heart and his mind and his subtle bodies, all of them. The entire egg, as it were, yolk and whites, a little sack of air and a shell, the whole Joey. I mean Humpty. You're the whole truth. At least you were when you were thinking about what you're going to do and wondering about it, and then figuring it out, and then coming to me to surprise me with your new choice. That choice did one thing for sure. If it did anything, it did this. It brought you to being on the phone with me right now. And you knew I was going to put you in a situation where I said a lot of silly things that I expect you to take seriously. And by seriously, I don't mean importance, I mean a willingness, not a willingness, but an openness, and more than an openness, an eagerness to experience the states of being that I'm suggesting to you that you can experience if you'll open to and say yes, yes, of course yes, yes, me too. Now, it might be really difficult for you to do that, and so I'm suggesting that anybody can do it no matter what their circumstances, so long as they're capable of making a choice. And if you're capable of making a choice, if you're in a state of consciousness where things are really bad for you, but you're still able to make any kind of choice. What do? You sit under a tree like Buddha until you've lost the life that you could have had because it took so long? You live a life of Jesus, which was, really extraordinary, and yet still so limited that seemingly he didn't reveal his own whole truth to himself, let alone to anybody else, until right before he died. And even then, it wasn't enough to save the world in the moment. It was good, possibly as good as ever been done before. But I'd like to say that Jesus would be happier if I said that. Are you kidding me? There was once a city called Enoch, and in that city was a little bit of a hellion, or maybe that's not the right word, but let's use that word. Let's say he was Enoch was a little bit of a hellion, and by that I mean somebody who was stopped, someone who was defined, someone who was under a great burden of limitations that largely made him completely forget who and what he was, and only have a reference point of the people that he's talked with for his life. That's his whole hard drive. But I don't know if he's a good man when he was doing that, or if he was a bad man. But at some point in his life, again, I'm talking as if the story is true, don't know if it is, don't care if it is. But at some point in Enoch's life, Enoch awakened to the point where, unlike myself, the things that he said, the things that he shared, were much more than what he said, because words cannot save you. They can only damn you. Oh my goodness. We got to put that on a t-shirt. Words cannot save. What was it I said? Now I forgot it. But it's recorded, so we'll get it back. I got off track. Joey, you remember what I was saying? Oh my God, Joey went to sleep. It doesn't matter. I can talk to Joey when Joey's not here too, just as easily as him being here, because I prefer to do all the talking anyway. So I'll send him a copy of this so he can hear the rest. Because what I know for sure is that Joey didn't hear enough to transform already. Or he was so fucking rude after he didn't say thank you, goodbye, I got stuff to do. And besides, I didn't experience it myself enough to have a transformative effect, but that's the subject. How did Enoch save the city of Enoch to the point where everyone in it transcended, disappeared? The city went up in the sky, probably at the top of the thing where the beanstalk went. But it went up in the sky, and it was so much better up there that nobody ever came back. And it was wonderful. And they wished we could all join them. And truthfully, we all wish to join them, As lovely as love can be, as lovely as hate can be, as great as it is to be unconscious and have experiences of life that are scripted and limited. Where's the back door to the program of the human condition? Where can a hacker hack his life? Where can a hacker override everything within and without that would wish or could wish for his demise, for his failure, for his servitude, for his slavery, for whatever it is that somebody else's intention thinks is more valid than each person's own free will? Because that's what saves us, our own free will, our own opening into our own wholeness. And so I'm suggesting that Job somehow, on his own, figured out, not Job, pardon me, Enoch, on his own, somehow figured out how to open up enough to have a transcendent experience himself. And it was such a great thing that he kept doing it, and kept doing it, and kept doing it. And whether it took him a minute, a month, a year, a decade, or half of his lifetime, at some point, his opening became a radiant presence. By radiant, I mean like a burning bush for Moses, only Enoch was the bush. And all the other bushes thought they could only ever be bushes. And there is not such a thing as an experience of transformation, of having this limited form, this limited experience, these definitions and roles and levels of consciousness critically defined as limiting everybody here. Nobody, not one person, is allowed to have a transcendent consciousness that's transcendent enough for everybody that experiences them to know that's true. So I don't know anybody who's that. But what I'm suggesting is that Enoch, if the story's true, I'm not saying it is, but if the story's true, then Enoch opened and allowed and communed with the divine for long enough for his body to transform into a temple for God consciousness. And at the point, and let's say that Jesus did the same thing, except whatever the purposes of Jesus going out the way that he went out, I'm suggesting that Christianity take a look at why the city of Enoch and the story of Enoch is in the Bible. Because that's the hidden truth. That's the hidden reality. The babies can't eat. That's the meat on the bone for the adult, for the person ready to say, okay, before I define myself to the point that I'm in a box I can never get out of, and that box doesn't exist, by the way, but it seems to. It's what we all experience. So before that happens, I would like to know what my purposes are in this game of life, that if I were divine, whatever that is, and I was preparing for my life, what would that preparation be? How far am I going to open? And because the opening defines your experiences in life, your identity in life, because you open up to a point where you're stuck and damned, and then you look around and look at yourself and say, oh my God, I'm stuck and I'm damned. What else am I? And you yourself into an identity. And then you have an identity and somebody says, man, you're weird. You know, why is your hair that way? Why are your clothes that way? Or why aren't you wearing clothes? Or whatever it is, you became an object. And other objects continually showered you with their opinions on what you were. And a lot of them agreed with each other. And so you said, must be true. Contextually, yeah, contextually true. Contextually, yes, you are your fucking body, and your body is you, and that's it. And when you die, you die. And so I'm not saying this so that you can plan for your eternal happiness after you die. No, I'm saying that very logically, you're probably not going to be internally happy, and you'll come back here again and again and again like Groundhog Day. That unless you get it right, if your life is uncomfortable and you don't like it and it's painful and you're suffering, and God knows you're suffering, then let's say that you came here to learn a lesson and have an experience where it's Joey's turn. It's Joey to awaken. Joey's turn to awaken. He can do it any time that he wants, in any tradition that he wants. And he can do it with no tradition at all. And he can do it as a life's work and as a hero's journey, and do it at the end of his life, all the while creating suspense as to whether or not it would happen, and it happened and you died. No. That's almost what Jesus did. You know, except he started high up, he started at the top of the possibilities of human potential that are collectively agreed upon, and then he went up from there further. So admittedly all that, but by his own admission, he said, don't call me good, for there are none good in heaven. And on that, I mean, there are none good on earth. Don't call me good, for there are none good on earth. Only the Father which is in heaven is good. So, water break. You know, when I leave and take time for a glass of water, you know, it's a signal that there's probably a reason for stopping. And that could be for you to contemplate yourself, the words I was saying, or for you to take your own water break or bathroom break. I know if you're looking for a continuing flow of information, when I'm silent, then notice the flow within, because that's what's transforming you, your own opening of your experience of yourself from within. So all I'm doing is talking to the current level of consciousness. You know, what you're experiencing yourself as right now. And I'm saying, beautiful, I love that, you're perfect. Just the way you are. Now, if you want to change, harmonize with me until, through looking at my experience of you, that you're perfect just the way that you are. And take a breath. Relax. And set yourself free. Not through effort, not through study, not through struggle, not through a hero's journey, but by willing to experience yourself. Be willing to experience yourself. That's the highway to heaven, while the highway to hell is experiencing yourself as you are and saying, this is me. If you say, this is me, to someone else, they'll believe you. And they'll treat you as a creation. They'll treat you as a personality. And then they'll interact with you according to everybody else's definition of who and what you are, with about 25% of it being their experience of you. But they'll allow mob rule. They'll allow 3 other people saying bad things about you to convince them that you're bad. So don't take your identity from your peers, from your enemies, from your friends, from your family, from your church, from anyone. But if you can't see yourself through the eyes of your enemies, then you won't be free, because you have to look at, not just look at the totality of who you are from every point of view. You have to be okay with it. But as soon as you look at it from all points of view, experience it from everything that it causes, the universe, you have to experience yourself as an impact on the universe and on consciousness. And so how do you impact your connections? You know, a lot of people have a different personality for everyone they meet, you know. And a bunch of different ones for different experiences that they have with the same person, you know. So on a slight degree, we're infinitely changeable in minute amounts for each circumstance that we find ourselves in. Each friend that we have, we're a little different to them than we are to others. And so the fabricated you is what we're talking about. There's a transcendent consciousness that is what every mystic, what every holy man strived for. And the ones that made it opened up into experiencing their own wholeness. And that's what set them free. Now, a while back, we were talking about Jesus, and I got off track, and I've got off track a lot here, going down different rabbit holes, so to speak. But what was it about Jesus that I didn't finish the thought of? It went away again because I smoked a little marijuana. Go Fat Buddha. You know, one of these days I'll try this without a little sacrament, you know, but aren't you supposed to take the sacrament at church? And if you want to commune with Jesus, and we got off track on that too. Okay, the communing with Jesus. We'll get back to the story of Enoch later, maybe. So, I was going to say Joey, because, you know, Joey's asleep now, so we'll talk to him subtly. If you're Christian, you know, you should be friends with Christ. And if you if you simply say, Jesus, I'd love to feel your presence right now. And as soon as you say it, he's doing it, because he's already doing it. So he doesn't have to wait and take action and decide whether to grant it or not. He's already hugging everybody. So we said that before. And everybody's already hugging Jesus. They just forgot because they had a body and they're doing some stuff with the body that's like a kid with a video game, that the rest of the universe and his own, the reality of his own house and family aren't there anymore because of the focus. So the problem is that you focus so much on being a body, on being a personality, of being a member, that you lost your awareness and the experience of your own truth, and you accepted every limitation that society put on you without challenge, without testing it yourself to see if it was true. So Jesus I shouldn't be telling stories about Jesus, you know. There's too many good ones already done, you know, so who wants to add to that when it's been done so well everywhere? I don't. But I do know this, that if I say, Jesus, I'd love to know that you're here. I'd love to feel your presence. And now I know, and I have to stay there for a while until I actually know the words that I'm saying. You know, I have to experience them as truth just as you do, because we're both making quantum jumps. And so when you ask Jesus, if you like using Jesus, you can use any God that you have faith in. It works for them all. So if you ask Jesus if they're divinely self-realized, and in heaven you'd think that people actually make it there, and if we're all brothers and sisters of Christ and we actually make it to heaven and we're hanging out, then let's just say we're all heavenly, because that would be true. Let's leave it at that. We're all heavenly, and the hierarchy isn't needed once everybody's there, because everybody's the same. The quality and the nature of us all are the same. What changes is when we enter an embodiment like this one. And we're entering a game as a creation. And yet there's a self-awareness, which is a really cool thing. Because instead of just experiencing the nature of whatever animal you embody, you're experiencing a consciousness that can consider and choose on the fly things other than safety, sex, food, and protection. And abundance, you know, just that's where most people are. How did Enoch get his whole city to disappear? He went on and on and on and on, experiencing a deeper and deeper and more profound way his own wholeness. I'm not going to say his own divinity, because even though that's true in my opinion, it's pretentious and it's offensive to people who think there is only one. But if your only one is Jesus, and you heard the words, greater works than I have done will ye do, then, you know, it's not so bad to say, hey, I propose that Jesus wanted me to experience the same life he did, except for the crucifixion. And he said that if you actually do it from who I am right now, your life will be better than me, because you'll have the rest of your life to live divinely, and I only made it until the end of mine. So that's why he said greater works. And so, but somebody, hopefully now, if somebody's asking for it, hopefully somebody wakes up, inspires the rest of us, and does all the work for us and makes it an irresistible proposition. But how different is that than how did Enoch make a whole doggone city disappear? Because people changed so much that the frequency, I guess, of their physicality, just became so fine and so rare and so exquisite that this reality wasn't real for them anymore. And what I mean to say is that I could give a couple examples, but that seems the only way. Enoch transformed himself so much that his proposition was irresistible, because how did everybody go? Everybody agreed. Nobody, you can't get 100 people to agree that the same thing that they all saw was what happened. It's nuts how dense and unconscious we all are, isn't it? Is this really what we want to do? Now we have communications, Enoch only had the city he was at. It wasn't like everybody was connected like it is now. So what would happen if you opened to experience your wholeness and then said, oh my God, this is nice. Oh, I don't have to hold myself in tension because I'm afraid something's going to hit me. And I don't have to be afraid that I don't know what's going on, because I can perceive the reality of what I'm experiencing outside myself, the physical universe. I can see the consciousnesses that are moving around, and they've defined themselves so completely that I can predict them and be right at such a high percentage of the time that, I don't need to know what that is. I'm not trying to prove anything. All I can say is that we're very predictable as members of the collective human consciousness. And the flow is unpredictable to the rock, but the rock is entirely predictable to the flow, the water. The stream doesn't know anything, and the water knows it all. The water has no problem with the stone until somebody piles up a bunch of them and stops it from flowing. And that's what damnation is. You define yourself to the point where your identity is your experience. And of course, each of us has an identity that is our experience. What we're talking about is miraculous transformational change and how that happens, and that how if Joey did it, he might get well in a quick and beautiful way, easily, naturally, organically. He's going to be organic. Divinely organic. I don't know. It seems to me that if you open up your consciousness to the point, like Enoch did, then nobody's plan for something less than that controls anything anymore. So if you opened and stayed open and continued to stay open, what would happen? What would happen if, try it, open. How? To what? You know, it doesn't need to be defined. You just have to be willing to experience it. Open to your wholeness. Because the only reason that you're not experiencing it is that you forgot and didn't focus on it. And I'm telling you that there's such a thing as wholeness of yourself. And that itself is a transformational jump. No, it's a quantum jump and a transformational, it's the fire of transformation. Your wholeness coming into your body, makes you to the burning bush, and the fuel for the burning bush are the stories and the thoughts and the ideas and the beliefs and the rules and the regulations and everything that defined anything, so that somebody who is less than divine in their self-realization could have an instruction manual for life. So I'm proposing that Enoch got to the point where he's having such a good time in his wholeness that he caught fire. Became the burning bush. And he set everybody else on fire. How did he do that? Job set the burning bush on fire by his opening to his own wholeness. And whatever divine beings or being or God or singular, whatever it is that's already that, without definition, whatever that is. Job did good too, that's another story. Enoch opened to that and received it and stayed open and experienced the flow of the divine until everything that wasn't divine in him that was created, everything that was, let's not say false, let's just say manufactured, constructed. You construct a dam. It's deliberate. And when you deliberately identify yourself, then the universe accepts it. And when the universe accepts your definition, it's going to treat you according to your own presentation of who and what you are. You don't need the universe's permission or anybody else. Every divine being that was ever truly divine said the same thing that Jesus is purported to say. And that is, you and I are the same. One of the last times I talked to him, which is a long time ago, I don't know why I don't talk to him much. One of the last times, because he has a sense of humor, one of the last times I talked to him, I said, Jesus, you know any good jokes? And he said, yeah, I got this one just for you. And he said, thank God they don't quote me in heaven the way they quote me on earth, or there would be none good in heaven as well. For divine truth is shared by hierarchies. And I got it wrong. For divine truth is shared by brothers, not by hierarchies. And if you wish, and while hierarchies are true, they're only relatively so. Divine, if the hierarchies are true, the hierarchies are true, but only relatively so. They must fall away when one chooses to know the truth of self. And the truth of self can't be shared by hierarchies, only by brothers and sisters. Everybody counts. Everybody's the same. Everybody wins. So divine truth is only shared by brothers and sisters, not by hierarchies. If somebody's divinely realized and they walk into a room, that entire room has an invitation, because a divinely realized being is home, at home with himself, at one. He's oneness, wholeness, fullness, completeness, you know. Your wholeness, your holiness. So how do I wrap this up? You know, there's a lot of stories, there's a lot of words. So where and when and how do we go beyond the words, beyond the orientation, beyond the explanation, beyond, you know, sharing enough to where you know that I know that what I'm talking about is true and real. So if the divine is real and true, and the truth will set you free, then this truth that will set you free is your own divine realization. And since it's already true, it's not something that has to be figured out. It's not something that has to be taught. It just has to be open to. You're experiencing troubles and strife and you're confused, open. Open until the dam breaks. Enoch opened until the dam broke and there were no more dams in him, and he was the free flow. And the free flow then, with the friction, and it wasn't water, the flow of the free flow rubbed against the kindling so fast and so irresistibly that it caught fire. So the fire is fueled by the lies, by the beliefs, by everything that the mind considers. And so if you want to know the mind of God, you got to recognize the mind of man is mindless. Or not mindful. The mind of man is mindful, full of mind, full of thoughts, full of ideas, full of confusion. And that the experience of the divine unwinds all that instantly if you're in the presence of a fully realized divine being. Not saying that I'm one, but I'm saying I've experienced some amazing things. So much though that, you know, I'm kind of dedicated to re-experiencing that. That's why I'm doing something so embarrassing, potentially embarrassing, is to put this on YouTube. Why would I do that? What I wish to experience for my mind, the way that I've been configured, and I don't know if I could change and do it another way, but what works for me is sharing my experience, even if I'm just sharing it to a camera where it's capturing it. But my willingness to contemplate and then suggest that my inspirations can guide us to a shared experience of each other. that is one that we'd both go, wow, that was cool. And so we start the premise, you know, if you're practicing something like this, if you want to take a while for it to happen, and you practice it, then, you know, and if you're doing it with a friend, you go, okay, let's do it. I'll look at you, you look at me. You look to see the divine in me, I look to see the divine in you, and we keep looking at each other, looking for that, and then opening to, oh my God, am I actually going to see the divine move through her or him? And then you do. When you give place for God or Goddess to speak through another person, looks, lost the battery on my phone, I'm going to stick in a new one. I don't know why I'm so out of it tonight. You know, it's not the battery on the phone, it's my camera. It's been so long since I've done this.
Hey, baby.
Hey, you're still there?
Nope.
Have you been listening the whole time, or did you just wake up?
Nope. I'm listening the whole time. I'm glad it's recording right here loud, my oxygen is in the background. But
Pretty rambling on with a lot of different.
no, that's good points. I was gonna write them down. I figured I'll just.
No. It is, you can. I'm recording this with my camera, and so you can actually watch me say it if you want to. Let's see.
Okay, yeah, just whatever gets me the audio.
Well, yeah, I can send you the audio too.
Okay. Alright, brother. I'm gonna try and get some sleep.
Wait, I didn't say I was done.
Oh, brother, I gotta try and sleep.
Oh, okay, well, you have to give me a 5-minute warning, you know, when you shut off, so I can wrap things up. You don't have to, but if you could suffer
Okay,
through.
I'll,
If you
okay, I'll keep that in mind for next time.
Oh,
so I
okay,
don't-
okay,
I
so
don't
you're
get
good.
behind
So
on it.
I'm gonna wrap up on my own without you, and you'll hear what else I say later then. Thank you so much for letting me do this.
Okay, brother, I love you.
One of these days I'll tell you that back. Good night.
Okay. Alright. Bye.
Bye. Man, what a week, what a month. Wow. So many emotions, so many strifes and trauma. It's been flippin'. What? It's been an adventure in frustration and fear of loss of a loved one. Fear of, wow, so much responsibility to take for so much pain and so much sorrow. You know, seeing one of my own children just suffering and realizing what a truly horrible father I've been. Let's see. I've got auto. I wonder if this, how do I tell if this is still recording? Oh, it says end stream. Okay. Sorry, I haven't done this for a couple of years. And I've got it. Thank you. Yeah. And so I forgot how to do all this. Okay, what else is left to say? I've got so many incomplete rabbit holes I went down. I'll see if I can tie them all up in a quick and elegant way. Not that you want to turn this off at any point you're bored, but you know, is there a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow? Is there something simple that I made you wait till last on, you know, to get the pearl of great price? You know, no, I don't have it quite yet. That's the deal. You know, I have amazing experiences, and I think they're going to stick. You know, I think, okay, I got it. I'm here. And then, you know, I go back to a better experience that's more aware, more present, but incremental. You know, so, you know, as you're coming out of hell, every now and then there's a picture on the wall or a thermometer, and, you know, the degrees come down every little while, and then you get some picture windows, you know, some glimpses of what's outside. And then in that tunnel, a fire and brimstone behind you, and darkness before you. Going into the void. Diving into the nothingness of the void and saying, I'm all in. I burned the bridge. I burned the ship. I cut the connections. I cut the cord. I jumped off the diving board, and I am going down. That's for sure. So if you like to do it that way, yeah, you say, come what may. I'm determined right now to experience my wholeness, to have my divine awakening and realization. And then instead of contemplating the fact that what you're experiencing right now isn't that, you don't get mad that you're present. Your present's your present. You created it. Love it. It's yours. You bought it. You bought your life the way it is. And so, what is there about your body that you can enjoy besides the obvious? You know, you can give it taste sensations. You can give it touch sensations. You can look at something ugly, and you can look at something beautiful. You can look at something deranged. You can look at something inspiring, you know. You can do thoughts and actions that hurt others, or you can do thoughts and actions that inspire others to choose better for themselves. So that's what Enoch did. His thoughts and his actions were focused on his experience of himself until he knew himself divinely. And he awakened. And sometime before he fully awakened, something happened to him that I like to call radiance, because my friend in Canada, he who shall not be named in a good way, he kind of guided me to experience a state of radiance a number of times. But he wouldn't do it for me, you know. He'd say, it's kind of like this, and try that, and try this, and try that, and I did. And, you know, we've been talking for 15 years now, and to talk to him is a revelation, you know. Wow, you know. You can talk about anything. He doesn't even have to tell you how to awaken and be whole. All you have to do is talk to him about business, and by the time you're done talking, everything's balanced out. And if you're paying attention to how much more you could open, and you do, then you open into that experience of wholeness that, might not be transcendent, but it's a radiation. It radiates. And so, at the point that you make the choice to open to your truth, you begin to radiate truth from yourself outwards in every direction. And when you become clear enough, when the flow has shifted you to the point of your self-realization, then your radiance becomes a bonfire in terms of what can come at you and you still maintain your consciousness without being knocked unconscious again. So Enoch, he did it and did it and did it and did it and did it until he radiated enough that everybody wanted to be with him. His whole city said, "Yay, Enoch." He had no detractors, not one. Everybody loved him. So he opened enough to his own truth, maybe with God's help, I don't know, I don't remember the story that well. But let's say that he asked God for help, and God said, "Well, would you notice that there's nowhere I'm not in you, and there's nowhere that I'm not outside of you? And so why don't, instead of going to the temple and looking at the beauty and opening up and saying, oh, kind of feel it a little bit. It's there, I get it. Here is the divine." Well, dummy, the divine's everywhere. And you don't have to go to church. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with church. I love church for churchgoers. And there's a lot of other people I wish went to church too, because it'd make them a better person if they opened up to the teachings of, be a good boy, be a good girl, tell the truth. But Enoch radiated to the point that everybody loved him. Everybody loved him. Everybody loved Enoch. And said, "Enoch, we knew you when you were less than this, and now you're this. What happened?" And he said, "Well, you know what? It was really easy. I just was experiencing myself, and I didn't like it. And I said, how much do I have to open to the potential of my consciousness, the potential of my embodiment? How much do I have to open to be out of this suffering that I'm in?" And I meditated on it, I contemplated it, and made my choice to be a reoccurring moment by moment choice to open and further open until I knew what I wanted to know. And as I was focused on opening, I'd ask the universe questions and say, what's this about? And my intention, because it was to ask that question of the universe, then as it percolated around the universe and got every point of view, it came back with the totality of what it actually is. And I asked, and I opened, and I experienced the flow back, the flow that's unified, that's conclusive, to whatever it is this. You allow that to be a creative force in reconfiguring you. In other words, you allow yourself to receive the truth of your answers as an experiential experience that shifts your reality in such a way that you open up more. And then the next time you ask It doesn't matter if it's the same question or a different question, and it doesn't matter what the subject is. It only matters that you ask the universe a question. And you don't have to wait long, because the universe is quick. Far faster than the speed of light, 1 trillion times faster. The question that you're asking is answered as soon as it's out of your mouth, and your focus isn't on receiving the answer or waiting for an answer. Your focus is on what is the answer telling me right now? What can I feel? You don't have to try and figure it out intellectually, because its causative force doesn't have to be divine. It can only truly be caused if you're vulnerable and you open. You say, whatever it is, I'm in the void. I'm already fallen. I'm just asking to know the truth. And not in an intellectual way, not in the way of knowledge, but in the way of experience. I would like to experience my wholeness. I would like to experience, and if that experience is my wholeness, I'd like to experience the truth that sets me free. And my proposition is, as divine as Jesus is, and he's as divine as it gets, his invitation to awaken is his brother or sister. In order for you to answer that request, you have to open to and experience your wholeness. And your wholeness can only be contained by a divinely realized consciousness. And so what you're asking is to experience the ultimate truth that sets everybody free, that opens into it. And the ultimate truth is the truth that if one is divine, all are divine. If one is divine, then all are divine. And there's been more than one divine, at least one. For the people who say there was never another one, it doesn't matter if there is or isn't. We're not arguing about that. If you believe that there was one, and that one is Jesus, or if you believe that it's anyone else, that's the tricky part that would get me in trouble with most believers. Whatever it is that you believe is divine, there's a crack in the door where the divine comes through and says, hey, take a look at this. And then that part of you that was confused and lost and said, okay, I can only do it this way, through this organization, through this church, through this atheist society, to whatever it is, whatever it is that you're willing to open the truth to, even if you're opening to something that's not true to themselves, even if you're sitting across from your partner like they do in Scientology, even if you do that, and you sincerely, without effort, but just by choice and focus, it's entirely effortless, because all you're doing is opening, looking, feeling. You're looking to see the divine in them. And you look, and you feel, and you open, and you continue to open more and more and more until they can't hide their divinity from you. If you hold another individual in your recognition of their divinity in the moment, then they'll see their divinity in your eyes. When you see somebody else's divinity, they'll see their divinity in your eyes, and they'll say, thank God somebody finally invited me to be myself. Thank you. And then you'll see your divinity in their eyes, and you'll say thank you. So if somebody could see the divinity in my eyes, I'd really appreciate it. Because, I think that's what we should each be doing. Looking each other in the eyes, not selling it, not making it a cult or anything, just for yourself and with your friends, with the ones that you know will cheer for you when you succeed, and have compassion with you when you fail, and encourage you to be the truth of yourself, the best of yourself. Those are the people that you hang out with when you're looking to see the divine. And then when you experience it as much as you can with them, have as many shared experiences of higher conscious with other people that you can. Simply by, the rules are, you both say, hey, I'd like to experience a transcendent experience with you right now. You sit down and get out of your focuses on who and what and how and where and why, and you just look in the other person's eyes. And if this would help, you can say to yourself in your own head, what is God going to say to me through her or through him? That way everybody gets to be the source. Everybody gets to be the one. Expect it from your friends. They're the ones that'll play this game with you. And say, not just namaste, not I see, Take it slow, man, to do it fast. You look at the other right now, knowing as much as you can that you're actually going to experience the divine through your friend that hasn't been that before. And you're so excited that when he does, you're going to have a shared experience where part of the result of that is going to be you're going to experience yourself divinely. And then in your divine self-realization, you're experiencing another's divine self-realization. And then together you've got something. Just checking on the camera. Yeah, still working. Together, a shared reality of divine companions, friends or lovers, whatever it is, doesn't matter. But don't violate others. Don't do anything that another person would feel bad about afterwards. That's a rule. Always measure another person's willingness to be moving in the direction that you would like to move them. If you have to talk them into it, it's a no. You have to say, hey, I'd like this. I'm okay with any answer you say. I still love you, and every answer is okay, but I would like, and you name whatever it is, and you'll be okay with the answer. But if you ask Jesus, and if you ask Enoch, and you can throw in Shiva and all of everybody's favorite gods, and I know that sounds disrespectful, but it's not. I was going to tell you about my friend, the TM devotee. We spent years together meditating. He was my friend, and he would come over to my condo most days, and I wasn't doing anything at the time, and we would sit and meditate in silence, share a room, and then go out to lunch and say goodbye. And that was the main purpose of the day. And it was a pleasure. It was life. I loved it. But instead of sitting across the room from each other meditating, which means striving for something to make something shift. Make it shift, make it shift, make it shift. What technique? How do you do it? How do you meditate? How do you move energy? How do you make today and tomorrow happen even better than you wished for? How do you make it so that your better next day wasn't just a wish for you? What if you wished for a better day for everybody, even the people that up until this moment you hated? How do you wish for that? Now, at the first effort, I can't do it, but I like to. And so I was going to talk about a gradient earlier, and everything is a gradient when you're limited. When you're damned, it's a gradient process. And so, what gradient do you start on? In order to self-realize the divine truth. Okay, if meditation isn't it, what was I thinking of when I was setting this up? So we were meditating, my friend and I meditated for years. And so the very act of meditation is trying to change things. And using effort, even in an effortless meditation, is using up your flippin' life. And if your goal is to go free and do it this lifetime and not ever have to come back to hell, the life of damnation, human consciousness, welcome to hell. There's some lovely places here and some lovely people, but how much freedom do they have to be their eternal truth themselves without other people getting uncomfortable? So Enoch, the whole city transcended. My girlfriend hates how I drag things on, and this is just ridiculous even for me. He contemplated the divine. He opened to the divine. Then he connected with the divine. And he stayed connected. And he opened more. And he opened more. And he opened more until there was nothing in him, of him, about him, that he didn't allow himself to feel the divine embracing him. And he reached out and embraced the divine universally until they were indistinguishable. There was nothing different between him and everything else that was divine and universal. And at that point, his body had to change. His consciousness had to change. His didn't have to, it just did. If you self-realize the divine, then the story of you is over. But the fable of you begins. So before you self-realize, your life is a fable, it's a story, and it's a pretense. When you self-realize, then the truth moves through you, not egoically, But whatever's real and true, you're open to. And so the universe can be present in the individual. And when that's the case, then that individual is the flow. A flow out and a flow in, a vortex, it's a living, breathing, divine, fiery furnace that transforms confusion, that destroys lies with truth, not by argument, not by proposition, but by fire. The lies burn, and it's a beautiful experience. And you're burning in hell, yeah, that's how you get out. Everything that's a lie burns, and what's left is real, eternally true. And it makes your body experience better, sometimes heals you miraculously. Now, again, I'm not saying I'm an expert on any of this. I'm open to my own experience, and I'm open to sharing as beautiful experiences as I can with other people who are choosing to willing to experience whatever truth it is that will set them free. And so you don't need any, or very many, pre-rules for this setup, and that is nobody has to talk anybody else into anything. Everything's your choice. And if we agree that we're going to choose the best each other so much that our choice is to experience divine realization ourselves by looking for it until it comes out of the other person that we're having the experience with, and willingly receiving that. And so I'll just imagine for a second that somebody does see this and experiments with what I've been saying and finds out that that worked well enough that they're enlightened, that they're wise, that they're an awakened one, and that they radiate that truth in their very presence, and so don't have to even say a word about it, like my buddy. He doesn't like talking about it, but if you talk to him, everything. So, avoiding the truth, man, can you believe how I get close to it and then back off, and then approach it another way and get close to it and back off, and then another way and another way and another way. And I'm doing that, I guess, because that's what it takes for me to open up and transform. Now, what I'm trying to do now is go further, and to go further, I think Enoch is the example. It's not for you to go free, it's for everything you experience and everyone that you experience to go free too. And so the exercise before the city disappears is each person is looking at another person and waiting and expecting and eagerly awaiting and eagerly expecting and confidently knowing, because they've seen Enoch make such a transformation they fucking can't believe it. And he says, yeah, and you too if you want. And so it's kind of like this. I'm not going to be the one that saves you all, which would be a cool way too if we were all saved, but people say they're saved, but they're still in hell, they're still in damnation. So I'm saying, great, we're saved for after we die, but is there something that opens the door to heaven as it earthly experience is a life, a way of life. So that's the question. Is the Garden of Eden going to be where we spend the rest of our lives while we're alive, while we have a body? And why not? Isn't that what Enoch did with his buddies, with his family, with his friends, with his enemies, especially with his enemies? You think Enoch didn't have enemies? Fuck, everybody has people that dislike them. Most have people, some people that hate them. Most have people that somehow are disgusted by them. People are perverted in every possible way, and through their perversions, through their judgments, through their thoughts and intentions, none of them look at the other person and say, is God walking that body? Is he? Is he? Look, open up. Feel what's going on with that person. Look in their eyes. Is God going to say hello to me through that mouth? And he got the whole flippin' city. He got the whole city. They all experienced enough of him that when he said, everybody, guess what? We're going to find God in each other's eyes of the people that we love. And then that'll transform us to a certain degree. It's nice, man. And we're celebrating. We're so happy because this was the person I loved the most anyway. But it might be beauty, it might be enlightenment, it might be something else, but it's something less than that which makes everyone enlightened and everyone free and everyone divine. So look into someone else's eyes, someone you love, and tell God or Goddess, reveal the divine through their brother or through their sister. Because the consciousness of your friend, the higher self, if you want to call it that, is divine. So open to your wholeness. Your wholeness is your divine self. Your wholeness is your higher self. Your wholeness is your eternal self. So just open to yourself and be free. Be whole, be complete, like every other divine being, or just that one other, because there's only one right now, and he died. Sad story, but he saved everybody. How did he save everybody? He gave us a clue. He said we're brothers in truth. You and I are brothers. You and I are brother, sister. And my girlfriend or wife or follower, whatever she was, and she sees her divine sisters too, and they see her. And as we experience that with somebody else, it changes us. When we see the divine in a friend, how much does that change you? How much does that change them? Even if it's just one time for a few minutes. My experience is that it changes you substantially. But my experience is also that it might take 1,000 times until it sticks, until it's a constant, and until you see it in other people besides the one you're practicing with. But if you practice this with one, then you begin to speed things up, and you begin to expect God to communicate through you, to you, through your other friends and your other family and other members of your group. But still, there's those enemies. And when you're when you've regained enough of your presence, when you've opened to enough of your wholeness, then there'll come a point where you say, okay, to all my enemies, to all my enemies, not just God bless you. Not that what I say adds anything to God, because if I'm looking at everybody I see with an expectation that God's communicating from them to me, then I'm not saying use me as an example, but you have to, after you've experienced some experience of the divine through where you're open to it, in order to lock it in and have that be a transcendent quantum leap that changed who you are, just as good and hopefully a lot better, because I would think George Foreman would say, hey, I'm nothing still, but man, this is sure better than it was before. Be open to your enemies. You don't have to go visit them and let them kill you or chop you up or even yell at you. All you have to do is enjoy the bliss, enjoy the gratitude, enjoy the celebration that you can have with your friends that are open to that. And then, when the time's right, you allow yourself to mentally, energetically, whatever, you take your enemy into your experience of yourself. You say, that mother, that doggone, you say, oh, he was at this level of consciousness and I knew it, and I interacted with him and felt bad. Ooh, boo-hoo. Even the most unconscious, let's say 90% of the people who are conscious, can size somebody up pretty well. So if you're hanging out with people who abuse you, and you're an adult, wow, don't do it anymore. Who loves you? Who brightens up when you share time with each other? And if that's nobody, then you got a long ways to go. But there's people in the park or in a coffee shop or something where if you said, hey, there's a little kind of meditation lesson that I would like to experiment with, see if it works. And I know it sounds crazy. And it is crazy because it's preposterous. How could it ever be true? It's nuts. But I think it would be fun to try it. Would you experiment with me? And as I look in your eyes, I'm willing to have the universally divine communicate. Or let's say radiate. Not, you don't have to think of words or anything. I just like to know to what degree. Not to know, I don't want to know. The only knowingness that I want to have is the knowingness that comes from experiencing unconditional love, unconditional support for life, meaning approval, a welcoming, a celebration. That for the moment that we're looking at each other, we're delighted to be doing that. Because that person is looking back at us, is looking to see if that they can experience the divine through us too. And we're not trying to do that. All you have to do is put all your focus on experiencing the divine, hearing, feeling, seeing the movement, whatever it is, however you can experience the other person, to feel what happens when their wholeness, when their fullness, when their infinite potential is self-realized. And it doesn't take, it's faster than the speed of light, so you can't even define it. Well, what if that is indescribable emanated and radiated from you to me? What would that feel like for me? So I ask the question, I experience the answer from somebody willing to play a game on that. How much divinity can we experience from the other person right now? You don't act it out like idiots. You're saying, hey, this is a peaceful thing. This is a quiet thing. Doesn't have to be, but I'm just saying that. I think it's easier that way. To be still and know that you are God. And you can know that by being still and looking and feeling and opening to experience God or the divine, or just simply a cosmic consciousness, or something that if everybody experienced it, everybody would say that was fantastically transcendent. So I'd love for somebody to look at me that way, not because I need it, but I do. Everyone does. If the planet's going to transcend, if the planet's going to make a planetary shift into heaven on earth, then everyone in it at some point of the transformation process of the world, then 2 people are going to have to do it, and 4 people, and it doesn't take very many multiplications of that for 8 billion people to experience it. I mean, over the course of a few hours, a few days, a few weeks, a few months, a few years, everybody makes their own free will choice. But when it starts, it'll spread like a virus. And when it starts, nobody gets the credit. And when it starts, nobody gets the blame. And when it ends, everybody is celebrating themselves and everyone else and everything else that they experience. And it's all such a divine dance that nobody's ill-affected by anybody else. Everything that came before does not matter. The only thing that matters is what happens when you walk out the door. When you walk out the door and there's someone, if you're awakened, if you're radiating, if you're divine, and when you walk out the door, the next person you look at, you expect to see the divine emanating from them. And then you've done it for your enemies now. And so all of the evil that you did to them is forgiven because you were blessing them. Not just God, but me too. I bless you, my enemy, all of my enemies, to their self-realization of their own divine truth. That's my blessing and that's my curse. Not by force, but by the power of truth. They're all divine. Quit pretending not to be. We came here to celebrate. I think that's true. I propose that's true. I'd like to say I know that's true, but I really don't for sure. All I know is it can happen. It has happened, but it hasn't spread like a wildfire yet. And so, 100 monkeys, guys, 100 monkeys. You know, supposedly you're descended from apes, so get 100 people doing it at the same time, see what happens. I don't know how big the city Enoch was in, but, you know, it was one of those old-timey cities. Since it's a city, not a village or a town or an encampment of some sort, let's say that it was 1,000 to 100,000 people. Probably fit in that range somewhere. And they all looked at each other, experiencing the divine. And then they looked at all the rest of creation. And my friend likes to put it in a particular way that's a little bit distasteful, but if you can look at dog shit, you can look and find the divine in that. Then you're really close to being enlightened. So if I can, if I can look at someone over there right now, if I can look at that someone and actually see what I know his truth is, and instead of trying to talk him into it, I just look for who he named himself to be and see that truth coming out of his eyes. It is personal. What I'm talking about is, if you'd like to awaken further, if you'd like to be saved, if you'd like the truth to set you free, how that occurs is you start with an easy one, and you look at a person you like that likes you equally well, and you look at them, each doing the same thing, looking at each other in the eyes and expecting the divine to radiate from them, speak from them, and you wait until it happens. There you go. That's your lesson. You got 30 seconds. This is so flippin' preposterous that I'm saying these things, because I'm nothing, never was anything. Didn't do much I was proud of. Did a lot of things I'm ashamed of. Did a lot of things that hurt others. I think I did a lot more hurting than helping. My optimism for life has been a curse, because in my optimism, I didn't see things for what they actually were. I believed that I could find truth in words. I believed that I could find truth in unconscious people. I believed that I could find honor and integrity among thieves. And as the scorpion said to the frog, essentially this: well, you can see I was a scorpion. I didn't try to be an elephant. I didn't say I was anything other than what I am. And there's my stinger, and I couldn't help myself. It's in you now, and we're both dead. But we're both dead, yeah, well. I wish you would have seen me for what I was, so I wouldn't have done to you what I did, which kills me too. Next lifetime, recognize me for the truth of what I'm being at that moment, so we don't hurt each other. You know? Let a scorpion be a scorpion, just don't step on it. Unless you want to be stung. If you want to be stung, go ahead. If you want to experience trauma and pain and sorrow divinely, you can do that. And I'm almost sure that you'll have to do that. Because if you're waking up in a place that's anywhere like where I'm waking up, I'm already in the midst of pain and I'm barely aware of the extent of it. So how do you deal with that? And I said it before, but what you are right now is what you're supposed to be right now. And so since you are exactly what you're supposed to be right now, you're a finished completion. You're not a work in progress. Your purpose in life was to be who you are in this second. And as soon as this second is this second, you don't have to be what you were anymore, because you completed your life mission while you're still alive. You didn't wait until your deathbed to complete your transmission, or wait for another lifetime afterwards because you screwed up so bad. So Enoch, they all got it. And it was a party, it was a celebration, it was a divine awakening. And they took their whole city to it, which I think also means, or could be implied, that they awakened the rocks and the cows and the cats and the dirt and the grass and the trees, the birds, the bees, all of it. Their entire reality divinely realized. Not just talking to animals, you're talking to your bike, talking to the wall. And everyone's celebrating how amazing it is that they met another object that was divinely self-realized, and still being that object. It didn't burn them up. The object, self-realized divinity, where previously it seemed to be that the earth was in a condition where when a person reached that point, city of Enoch flippin' disappeared. Wasn't here anymore. Well, let's say that the frequency of the earth has changed enough people have opened up and become aware that you can be stably awakened here without destroying the body. I'd like to think that's true, and I'd like to, by experiential realization, prove to myself, for myself, that it's true. And so this is what I like to do, and this is my kind of diving back into, hey, I know I'm overwhelmed with business problems, regulation problems, family problems. Everything is the way that it is. Each one of our lives are messed up the way that we messed them up. Or, if we're all traumatized from other people's actions, and we chose ourselves into that beingness that the universe reacted to appropriately. Let's just say that everything is the way that it's supposed to be. It has to be in order for it to change. It can't be an accident. It can't be a trauma. It has to be, I became a hammer and you were a nail. I was a nail and you were a board. I was a board, etc., etc., etc. Every beingness attracts and organizes reality around it according to that, the characteristics of what the consciousness defined itself to be, what the object is. The objective was to be that object, and then consciousness acted accordingly. What we're talking about is, what's the defrag? What's the reset? What's the do-over? When you're already alive and you don't want to devote 1 billion years in one religion, or 10,000 lifetimes in another religion, or 10 minutes in another. Yeah, I shouldn't have said 10 minutes probably, but give it 10 minutes with a friend of yours. Look into their eyes and find God. And they'll look in your eyes and they'll find God. You won't worship each other, you'll celebrate each other. You won't do it in a hierarchy. It's a shared community. The whole city left. The whole city transformed. And there weren't hierarchies. It was a brotherhood, it was a sisterhood, it was a family. It was a community where they communed. I'm trying not to swear, because I never did it when I was young. And so there's a part of me that still gets a little bit of satisfaction from using it. But at the same time, I know there's so many people that offend. So to the people I've offended by using the swear words that I have here, I'm sorry. Try not to do it again. But if you lasted long enough for this "I sorry," then I know you really didn't need it. But for the time where it triggered you and it was uncomfortable, take a look at that discomfort. Because there's a lot of people that doesn't offend. Why would you limit yourself by being offended? Why would you limit yourself by being offended? It's not their problem, it's yours. So, start with your pet peeves, man. Start for what you don't like about other people. And look and find God there. It'll be a beautiful thing. Can you imagine celebrating with your enemy after you both wake up? I'm not saying to do the exercise with them. I'm saying do the exercise until you radiate. And then radiate in a continuous opening until when your enemy comes by to say something hurtful to you, the closer they get to you, the more they enter whatever your sphere of radiance is, and they forget the lie. They forget the truth of their lie, their configuration, their makeup, their identity that's held together by traumas and lies and ideas and beliefs. Everything that's not true about that, the light of divine realization encompasses that, and all your enemy can do is leave or love. I'll make another nice painting. Leave or love. So I don't know if I want to keep on talking. Leave or love is... No, that's not an ending point. Sorry about that. That's oppositional consciousness. So what did I really wish to end this with? It's all you. That's for one. It's all you. Except for the other person that you're eagerly expecting to experience divinity from. Even if you don't look in their eyes, even if you're just sitting on a bench in the park, even if you're doing it for each person that walks through. Observe what happens to them when grace touches them, because grace will touch them when you expect the divine to emanate from them. There'll be a grace that flows out of them. There'll be a coming to attention. There'll be an awakening of some kind. And so observe the world as you look to find the divine in it. Observe the world until you look to find the divine in it. And the world has its transformation. The lion lies down with the lamb. The bird hangs out with the worm, and the worm laughs at the bird's jokes. Whatever it is, it's a situation where the atoms and the molecules and the body and the organs and everything transforms to the point where the destruction of something else isn't required for you to be what you are. So when your body's transcended, it doesn't require a cycle of creation and destruction in order for it to exist. So I guess that's what immortality would be, embodied immortality. That's what I think a demigod should be. And if there's any of them walking around, I haven't met them, but I will tell you that I have seen somebody transform right in front of me. And not just one. I've seen, a dozen people or more shift. So it's the shift. Make the shift. And so now I'm going to meditate on this a little bit myself, because I didn't open enough to have this completely transform me. But boy, if anybody ever watches this, and if anyone ever looks at me, I hope they look at me silently asking for God to reveal himself through me. And that's the blessing that we give each other. That's the blessing we give our world. That's the blessing we give our friends, our enemies, our lovers. Those outside your group, those outside your society, the detested, horrid enemies of individual group. So it's a race, country. Everybody wins. Everybody. So take the ball, run with it, score, celebrate. Give somebody else the ball. Help them score and celebrate by asking them to participate with you in your self-realization that you're ready for, that you're choosing for. And be at peace, man. I'm not saying I am. I'm just saying that I have the experiences that I have, and they've been wonderful, and this is part of it. I'm not claiming anything other than the fact that I chose to say what I say, and what I say was moved by the experiences that I had, not by preparing. So, namaste. I see the divine you. Now that's a lie, I think, every time I ever said it. But each time I say it now, I'm going to pause and notice the divine in them. And then I'll be better to you next time you see me.